So the Argos BTR, it has had a lot of popularity over the past couple of years. And there's a lot of reasons why. But the main one is that this is a rifle scope that is priced for budgets, for people looking for budget builds, or for people, just looking to start out with PRS and long range shooting and just aren't really wanting to spend that much money. It's priced very, very well. It's $369.99 for the 6-24 magnification with 50 millimeter objective lens, and then it's $389.99 for the 8-34 magnification with the 56 millimeter objective lens. But it's under $400, which is great because then you can theoretically build a gun for under $1,000 with the scope and everything that can hit 1,000 yards. That doesn't guarantee that you're going to hit 1,000 yards. Obviously, there takes some skill and some know-how in there for you to be able to do that. That being said, it is possible for that to happen. And not just possible for these really highly experienced shooters, for people who have been doing this for a long time and really know what they're doing. It's possible for people to come in, learn the ropes, and after probably just a couple months of shooting, really have that capability of being able to hit steel at 1,000 yards. And that is honestly what makes this scope so popular. For those of you that are looking for a budget build, or those of you that are looking to just start out with PRS and long range shooting, this is a great scope for you to consider, especially the people who are looking to just start out. The people who are just looking to start out, you're probably not wanting to sink too much money into this sport quite yet because you're not sure, how much are you going to be doing this? Do you really want to spend $3,000 on a scope or $2,000 on a scope or whatever it is? And in most cases you don't. You probably don't want to do that unless you really know what it is that you're looking for and whether you know whether you're going to be using it for a long time, right? Because you know how hobbies go. Sometimes you start a hobby and then a month later you're done with it and you're like, well, why did I spend $8,000 on brand new golf clubs, right? Actual experience with me, I ended up finding golf boring. But anyway, this is a great scope if you're just starting out because it isn't going to set you back that much and you still have all the features of a really high quality scope. Okay, so we got ED glass and it does get a pretty good optical quality test. It's got a zero stop capability. Now it's not a zero stop system, that kind of degrades the quality a little bit. However, you do have the capability of a zero stop there. Fully multi-coated lenses, a parallax adjustment here, and illuminated reticle. This one is the 6-24 magnification, goes all the way up to 24x, which is really good. It tracks really well. It's got a fast focus knob here too if you take the end cap off. So all of these features are what you would normally, probably about 5 to 10 years ago, only be seeing on scopes that are $1,000 above. And probably even more than that. Sometimes they'd cost as much as $2,000. So the Argos is, people use it for tactical shooting, they use it for hunting, they use it for learning, they use it for, like I said, a budget build, for something they just want to, just mess around with and whatnot, and they don't want to spend that much money on it. It's a great and very versatile scope. It ended up getting a solid B, or a B minus, I think is what it ended up getting, which I think is very fair. And we put it through all the tests, the features test, the tracking test, and the optical quality test. So without further ado, let's get into all those tests. And so for the feature score, I ended up scoring it 37 out of 44 total points possible, which gives it an 84.09%, so a solid B, which is really, really, really good for a scope in this price range. Really good. And let's just go through the different things that factor into that. So for the feature score, for those of you that don't know, remember that what I do is I take a really high quality scope, one that we know has like the best features on the market. So for instance, in this, we took the Vortex Razor HD Gen 2, the 4.5 to 27 magnification with 56 millimeter objective lens. And I gave it a full 2 points for every feature that the Gen 2 has, and then I would grade the Argos BTR on whether it matched up to that or not. So it was 0 point if it had none of that, a 1 point if it kind of had it, and 2 points if it fully had it. So we'll go through them one by one. The Argos BTR has a 30 millimeter objective tube, and the Vortex Razor HD has a 34, so I gave it a 1 out of 2 for that. It's got a 50 millimeter objective lens. Razor HD Gen 2 has a 56 millimeter, so I gave it a 1 out of 2 for that. ED glass, it does have ED glass. It's not as high quality as the Razor HD. That being said, it's pretty good for the price it is. So I gave it a 2 out of 2 for that. Now, I do differentiate it on the features score here in a bit when we talk about edge-to-edge clarity, so don't worry, we'll get into that. The illuminated reticle, it's got that. Edge glass reticle, it's got that. Those are 2 out of 2. Then we come to the edge-to-edge clarity. Razer HD has edge-to-edge clarity, so this gets a 0 out of 2 for the edge-to-edge clarity. It does not have that feature. It's a first focal plane scope, 2 out of 2 for that. Advanced fully multi-coated optics, 2 out of 2 for that. Then the LTEC turrets on the Razer HD, that gives them both elevation and windage zero stop adjustments. And you can set them manually on the Argos. So I took a point off for that. And that's because you have to go through a little bit more of a process to get these little washers that you have to put in there to set it to a zero stop. So I gave it a 3 out of 4 for that, just because it's not technically built in there. A one-piece aluminum construction, 4 out of 4 points for that. It's got a side focus, 2 out of 2. It's got an elevation adjustment. It's 18 mil total on the elevation, 18 mil total on the windage adjustment. The Razer HD has a 28.5 mil on elevation and a 10 mil on the windage. So I gave this a 1 out of 2 on the elevation because it's 18 versus 28.5. And I gave it a 3 out of 2 because it's 18 versus 10. So it kind of balanced itself out there. And then we ended all with argon purging, waterproof, fog-proof, shock-proof, lifetime warranty. All those got 2 out of 2 points. And that brings the Argos BTR score to a 37 out of 44, which is 84%. So when you're stacking it up against a scope like the Razer HD, it stacks up really, really well. It's got an 84% of the total features on the Razer HD, and the Razer HD costs about $2,000 as we speak right now. So that's a really good score. Now let's go ahead and take a look at the turret tracking. And so for turret tracking, remember we do 2 different tests here. The one test is just a shot group tracking. So I'll shoot some groups. I do 5 tests of it, and I have a mil box. And what we do is we shoot it at 0, which is in the center box. Then we go left a mil, up a mil, shoot to that box, right 2 mil, shoot to that box, down 2 mil, shoot to that box, left 2 mil, shoot to that box, then back to 0. And we give it a point if it lands in the box, 0 points if it's outside the box. And I'm only giving myself 10 seconds to make that adjustment in between shots. So it's kind of a high pressure situation, not crazy high pressure or anything like that, but it's enough to make it so I have to really, really, really have my tracking on point in order to hit those shots. Okay, so what we ended up getting with that was a 24 points out of 30 total, which is an 80%. I think that's pretty fair. Now, we also do the testing, or the other test that we do, is a vertical test, and we call it the machine test. And what we do is we get a vertical line, and I have markings for 2 mil, 4 mil, 6 mil, and 8 mil, all the way up and then back to 0. And we just adjust the turret, see where it lands in relation to those, and then keep on going up until it hits the 8 mil, then back to 0 and see if it matches. So what's good is that the 0 stop works great. So the 0 stop, it got 0 on every single time. It didn't miss that at all. That's good. And what we noticed though is that it started to get a little bit off as we started to go up in mil. So as soon as we got up to 6 mil and 8 mil, it started to be off a little bit more than what it was on the lower ones. 2 mil and 4 mil were pretty dead on. As soon as we got to 6 and 8 mil though, it was about 0.17% off, anywhere between 0.17 to 0.23% off of the total. And then from there, we extrapolate that data, we figure out the confidence interval and the average off, and then we want to figure out if you shot at 1,000 yards, 500 yards, 200 yards, 100 yards, and 50 yards at that amount off, what would those total inches off total up being? And then we take that subtracted out of 100, and then we total up the possible points, or we scale that out anyway. So what we got there is you'd end up being 12.3 inches off total out of all those shots, not off of any just one shot. Like for example, at 1,000 yards, you'd be off around 3 inches. But then at the if you totaled them all up, you would be off for about around 12 inches. And so that gives the manual tracking score an 87.65 out of 100. So pretty good, a solid B for tracking. And that gives us when you combine those two scores and you put them into just one score, that gives our turret tracking score a 111.65 out of 130, which is a solid 86%. And I think that's very fair to say that this scope tracks like a B scope. It's not gonna be like the Ares ETR, which is dead on every single time, literally every single time it's dead on. But it's not gonna be as mushy as anything else. One caveat there is something I did notice, and I've had other people have problems with this too, is that these are very defined turrets, as you can hear. However, they can be a little bit mushy. Like for example, I kind of have a little bit of wiggle room there, and when it does that, the little center line will end up between two of the little hash marks here. And there is a fix for that. You can remove this knob and place it down correctly. That being said, that kind of lowers the quality a little bit in my point of view, and I just kind of wanted you guys to be aware of that. Now, with the optical quality score, remember we do 2 tests as well. We do the Snell and eye chart test, and we do the resolution test. So the resolution test just uses the USAF 1951, just stands for United States Air Force 1951 resolution test, where you see if you can see the difference between lines on this chart. If you can, then it has that resolution score. If you don't, then you keep going until you find one that you can, and then we give it a score based off of that. And then the Snell and eye chart is we look for the lines where we miss no more than 2 letters on the line. If we miss more than 2, that line gets docked a point up into the line until where we get them all right, under 2 anyway. And this was where the Argus kind of fell a little bit. The optical quality, even though it has ED glass, the optical quality wasn't necessarily as good as something that you'd really expect out of an A scope. So for example, it got a 76% total. And what we noticed was that as soon as we got to these high magnifications and we started to have these problems when we were at 25 and 50 yards even, even with the parallax adjustment, we'd have it adjusted for 25 to 30 to 50 to 75, just as we gave ourselves wiggle room. Obviously, it was tough to get it to focus and with that high magnification at 24, and that's probably because this one its highest magnification is 24, and that tends to be where the cutoff ends up being for scopes, is at their highest magnification is when it tends to be is when the clarity tends to come off a little bit. Now we got it out to about 700 yards, give or take, before we couldn't see anything on the Snellen chart or the resolution chart anymore. So it got 70 points in both those categories, which I thought was really good for it. But again, the optical quality, it's kind of something that you'd expect out of a $370 scope, right? But probably a little bit better than what we would expect out of a $370 scope. I think it performed pretty well here. I think a 76% is a very fair grade for that. That being said, out of everything that it had, that was one of the more disappointing parts. But it wasn't bad by any means. It's not like it failed the test or anything like that. So just keep that in mind. And so we come to the final score and the conclusion here. Now, the final score, we get an 81.23%, which is 607.64 points out of 748 possible, which is very good for a scope at this price range. Remember, we have to scale out the tracking score and the optical quality score, or this tracking score and the feature score, in order to have them weighted enough to where they make a difference with the optical quality score, because the optical quality score has more points that go into it. So we weight them out like that, and just for a review, we end up getting 74 out of 88 points for the feature score, 279.137 points out of 325 for the turret tracking score, and 254.5 out of 335 points for the optical quality score. Now, the biggest things going against the scope is the optical quality. It just wasn't as there as we probably want it to be. That being said, for a scope under $400, very good, very high quality lenses for under $400. And I thought it held up for the price you pay for it. I thought it held up extremely well for that price point, especially with all the features that you get with it as well. So again, that gives you a solid B scope here. Highly recommended buy for people that are looking for a budget build that can still hit out to 1,000 yards, for people who are just learning, and for people who want to use it for hunting and stuff like that. There are a lot of people that use it that use it for those uses as well. So there you have it, everybody. That is the Argos BTR, and it's a great scope and it's a great buy. And I know a lot of people who have them and they're all extremely happy with them. I am one that has one as well. This is my own personal one. That's why the box is so beat up and everything. Don't think you get it when it's brand new, when it looks like that. But yeah, overall, just an excellent scope, especially for the money. If you're looking to learn or something like that, this is probably a really, really good thing to learn on. Other than that, if you guys got feedback or anything like that, drop them below. Drop the feedback below. If you got questions as well, drop those below. I'd love to help you out. Love to answer any questions you got. Till next time. Thank you very much.